discussed beforehand, we ask that you share the speaker's point of view. So of course, we all have our phones out every now and then. So if you want to use Twitter, we're going to be live tweeting the event. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the CHLI, THECHLI. We're going to have a Q&A section after as well. So if y'all do have questions, please go ahead and save those for after the discussion. And now to introduce our CEO and President, Mary Ann Gomez-Porta.
But most of the time I don't need a microphone. So, buenas tardes, welcome everyone, good afternoon. Again, I'm Mary Ann Gomez-Porta, the President and CEO of the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute. Welcome to our annual Tech Talk. CHLI is the premier organization founded by members of Congress to advance the Hispanic community's economic progress with a focus on social responsibility and global competitiveness. Founded in 2003, I'll come back to that in a second, CHLI is a 501c3 nonprofit and the only bicameral, bipartisan, Hispanic-led and Hispanic-serving nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. We are dedicated to fostering a broad awareness of the diversity of thought, heritage, interests, and views of Americans of Hispanic and Portuguese heritage. CHLI celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. Not quite a legal drinking age, but we hope you can join us this year to celebrate the 20 years of service at our annual awards gala on May 10th here in Washington, D.C. at the Waldorf Astoria. Wow. We will be honoring members of Congress as well as former CHLI interns. I would like to recognize a few people before we start the discussion. First, we have a few of our global leader interns with us, so if you can all please raise your hand. Want everybody to see the future leaders here? Yes, congratulations. They spent 2 months interning in a member of Congress's office, which they wrap up this Friday. And then next week, they spend 2 months, starting next week, they spend 2 months interning in a corporate affairs office here in Washington, so they can get both the public and the private experience. So if you know of a college student who's interested in being in Washington for an internship, it's a paid internship, includes housing, a stipend, metro allowance, whatever else. Ask the gentlemen and the ladies who raise their hand. We are right now taking applications for this fall cohort. We also started a law fellowship program for the summer, so that application process is also available. And I don't know, I don't see Nicole, where is she? She walked out. Well, when she comes back in, I'll reintroduce her. She's in charge of our internship program, so make sure you talk to her to get us additional information. I also want to take the time now to share with you a little bit about our sponsors. Our year-long public policy briefing series is sponsored by American Petroleum Institute, Pacific Gas and Electric, Amazon, Chevron, Accenture, Apple, Charter Communications, Ducenta Squared, General Motors, Intuit, and the National Association of Broadcasters. And before I pass it on to our moderator, I need to thank the crew and the team here at CHLI, because if I wait till the very end, some of you won't be here to hear that. So I want to make sure I recognize Gabriel, Angela, Nicole, Christian, Emily, Tia, Aveshla, Giovanna, Tyler, Yuvia, and Sasha. Thank you all for your time and putting this all together. Before we introduce our moderator, we have a very special woman with us today that I'd like to introduce next. So one of the beautiful things about CHLI, as I mentioned, is the diversity of thought, and people from both sides of the aisle that we have on our board of directors. The next person I would like to introduce is one of our board members, Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez Colon, who represents Puerto Rico. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be here. Welcome everybody to this Capitol building. And this is one of the few occasions that actually we can do something regarding Hispanics and regarding tech and STEM for students. So I want to say, first of all, thank you for the Congressional Hispanic Leadership Institute for always keeping in mind opportunities for young people and for Hispanic across the nation. And I need to say thank you to Marianne because of her extraordinary work. Led many of those students to actually work in my office. Some of them, I kept them after they finished the internship as part of my staff because they're really good. And we need to provide that opportunity to many others. So thank you, Marianne, for all you do. One of the issues today, and we got a panel of experts in that area, is how we can promote more Hispanics to go into STEM. How we can promote those tech conversations happening and what we can do in Congress to foster that. So to that end, as a CHLI board member, I'm more than grateful that we are actually having those discussions. Sometimes it's just in writing, but here, a briefing like this one can spark and promote that many of us can do something and do something not just in the public sector, but in the private sector as well. My good friend Henry Guayer, who's going to be here anytime soon, we work together in many issues. Actually, we both are the co-chairs of the Friends of Spain caucus, actually celebrating that Hispanic culture. One of the opportunities I got when I arrived here in Congress was being part of the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee in the House. And from there, we sponsored and we fought for many bills, one of them, HR 2528, which tried to increase the participation and retention of Hispanic students and innovators in STEM studies and careers, including, of course, those on the STEM Opportunity Radio. That's one of the issues that we should promote, not just only for Hispanics, but for women as well, and minorities in academic and professional careers in STEM. The other bill is HR 4372, the MSI STEM Achievement Act, which supported efforts to increase STEM education in minority serving institutions. And why is that so important? Because minorities not always are accepted in academic institutions. So as the sole representative of Puerto Rico, I have to say that I'm extremely proud that innovators that are coming out from the island, as well of the programs that they're helping them turning their ideas into outstanding realities, and that's one of the issues that we should promote here. For example, one of the main supporters of innovation on the island, in my case, is the Puerto Rico Science, Technology, and Research Trust. We've developed programs that promote the advancement of Puerto Rico's economy through innovation-driven enterprises, and actually with the reconstruction and with what happened with the hurricanes on the island, we managed to secure federal funding that this institution is using to foster those ideas and programs, while facilitating a process of transforming the island into a globally recognized innovation hub. There are many projects. I'm not going to go to the list of all of them, but I'm also proud that many of our schools and universities currently offering extensive STEM-related curriculums options, which is training the future generation of scientists, engineers, and tech industry leaders. And today we got a panel here that is going to talk more in details about that. And when talking about innovation, I think it's necessary to stress out the importance of guaranteeing students of all backgrounds to have access to quality education. Because at the end of the day, that should be our society's engine for cultivating innovation and people to be innovators. I'm a co-chair as well of the Congressional Hispanic Serving Institutions Caucus, and I have consistently fought to secure proper funding for programs aimed at providing the academic tool to Hispanics students in Puerto Rico and across the nation that they need to succeed in their respective fields. And just yesterday, we just met with representatives of the TRIO program, which is one of the programs that we have across the nation, which provides program targeted to assisting low-income individuals, first-generation college students, and individuals with disabilities to progress through academic pipeline from middle school to postgraduate programs in schools, and we should not let that group out of our scope. So I think it's our responsibility as members of Congress and in this institute to support those initiatives and of course, any legislation that can promote that, as well as the development of many innovators across our community. So of course, there's still many challenges, funding challenges, but I think the private sector is always there to provide that insight of how things may be done. So I want to say thank you to our panelists today for sharing those ideas, what can be done, what are the options that our students and Hispanic got in this industry. And again, thank CHLI for allowing this briefing to happen, and to all of you for participating and actually taking the lead in those issues. So thank you, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay, and now, it seems like we got the microphone back on just in time for the Congresswoman. And so now I want to welcome and introduce our moderator, David Olivencia. Actually, I had where's my prop, David? Hold on a second. I think I put it away. This is there's some in the back table. I have it right here. Okay. My personalized autographed one. Okay. So first, David is an accomplished global technology executive and author with a deep experience delivering measurable business results for leading organizations. In particular, my prop is about his latest book. So this is Networking Excellence. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but he says that CHLI is somewhere mentioned in here. Okay, page 131. Okay. The reason for that is because David is also a former board member of the organization, and the reason we have an annual Tech Talk is because of David. When he was with Accenture and on the board, along with some other companies, we always ended up having an annual tech something kind of conversation, and then it just became like, let's just do this every March, and let's call it an annual Tech Talk, and let's invite this conversation on an annual basis. So thank you, David, for that. He is the CEO and co-founder of Angeles Investors. Prior to Angeles Investors, David held various senior executive positions at Nippon Telegraph and Telephone, Ford Motor Company, Oracle, Verizon, Softtech, and Accenture. David is a sought-after speaker for his perspectives on technology disruption, early-stage investing, networking excellence, and leadership issues. He has presented before the U.S. Congress, National Association of Corporate Directors, Great Minds in STEM, Business Week, and Comcast Newsmakers. He has been recognized by Crain's Chicago Tech 50 and Hispanic Business Magazine's most influential Hispanics in America. David has served on many private, civic, and nonprofit boards throughout his career. He is a former CHLI board member, as I mentioned, and so please join me in a round of applause for David Olivencia to serve as our moderator today. And the book can be found on?
Everywhere.
Everywhere, okay. Me gusta. My last thing is that we are live streaming this on YouTube. So you will be able to share that later. It's being recorded as well. So if there's something you want to promote afterwards or kind of take a look at later on, please note that it will be available. Thank you. David, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Marianne, thank you for that warm introduction and also buying the book and support of the book. Appreciate that. And thank you everyone here for showing up and attending. We're in for a treat. We have some phenomenal panelists, some technology leaders that are going to share some perspectives. And you know, when I don't know, it was maybe 10-ish years ago, we started this Tech Talk, and at the time there were so many amazing technologies that were happening. I said, Marianne, it's important that we get in front of our leaders in Washington D.C. and help kind of share and have these conversations. So thank you, Marianne, for your leadership in pulling these together. And then as it relates to the book on networking, you know, I learned a lot about networking from the leaders at CHLI. You hang around Lincoln Diaz-Balart enough, Mario Diaz, Henry Cuellar, and all these, you really get to see people who are excellent at networking. So thank you, and thank you all who are attending. It's a pleasure as we talk about this discussion of innovation and technology, focusing on innovators under 40 and programs initiative supporting those Hispanic innovators, investors, programs and universities in our communities. We have a rock star panel of really some global leaders here in technology. And I'm going to ask each of the panelists to do an introduction of themselves, and then we'll get into the program. So let's start with Juan, if you would.
Hi, Juan Betancourt. I'm the founder and CEO of Human Intelligence. My background, Cuban American from the Washington, D.C. area. Currently live in Miami. Family with 2 young kids. I educated at Harvard, Wharton Business School, worked at Reebok, Puma, Procter & Gamble, a company called Decathlon. Then became a partner at Heidrick & Struggles and Korn Ferry, the 2 largest search firms in the world, and launched Human Intelligence 6 years ago. We've won more awards in HR technology than any other company in the last 3 years. So I'm always a top 10 HR tech influencer with Josh Bersin. We've signed clients like Coca-Cola, Accenture, BASF, Bank of the West, and several others. We just were accepted to the Endeavor program, which is an accelerator program that's more successful than EY Combinator. So I definitely have the experience and the perspective of Hispanic, which there are not many in the tech world, and look forward to sharing those insights with you today.
Thank you, Juan. Jake?
I'm tremendously impressed just by his own introduction. Jake Brody, I'm with Accenture, 25 years with the company. I've done a variety of different things, spent almost 19 years in our federal business. Now I lead what's called Accenture Song in our U.S. South region, which is Maryland to Florida, Texas, and all points in between. We're the part of Accenture that does things like growth and innovation, marketing, commerce, sales, and service. We've won Emmy Awards for the digital virtual experiences for Stranger Things and Lost in Space. We did some of the graphics design behind Game of Thrones. We also drive the experiences you probably engage with every day. How do you buy and shop online, on mobile devices? How do you sort of experience the new world today, the types of things that my teams do? And we do advertising. We did the Huggy Super Bowl ad a couple years ago. We did the Coinbase ad last year. We did a couple ads over the Super Bowl this year. So we're a part of the firm that really thinks about how do you help clients be relevant? How do you leverage technology and creativity to drive change in the world? And I enjoy what I do there. I've grown up all over the world. I sort of bring a bit of a global citizen. My father was in the UN and the Peace Corps. I grew up overseas in Iowa City, Iowa, which is kind of like being overseas in some respects. And I'm excited to be here to talk to you about innovation and technology, and really what I say is the opportunity for a diverse world to be very successful.
Excellent, thanks, Jake. And check out Accenture Song. Those who are online, they're doing some phenomenal, great stuff. Thanks, Jake. Jorge.
Hi, I'm Jorge Lopez. I'm Distinguished Vice President and Analyst at Gartner. Gartner is a publicly traded firm on the New York Stock Exchange that advises just about every institution and every corporation and government around the world today, with thousands of clients throughout the world. And we advise them about how they use technology. And principally, we're more into the business side of it as well, talking about how you in fact, should manage your HR, your finance, and other major functions of the business. I think that, personally, I've been the leader of a line of research over the past decade called digital business that has actually become our brand, and is a way that shows how corporations are able to leverage technology to get business results. More recently, been focusing on the industrialization of space, what's been happening with SpaceX and Starlink, and that entire group of companies that are revolutionizing the way that we're going to be living here already in the coming year.
Excellent. So you get a sense of the leadership, the technology breadth that this panel has. So we're going to get started here, and I'm going to start asking questions to our panelists. We'll start with Jake. And Jake, if you could share with us some programs that Accenture has created to promote innovation, and also, in secondary to that, why have they been important to Accenture?
I'll answer the last and come back to the first. So our premise, our CEO and chair, Julie Sweet, has been very much out in front of this, and her points are that inclusion and diversity are the core of what we do. It's embedded in how we go about our business, how we engage in the marketplace, and how we think about the talent we bring into our business and the work that we do. And so in that regard, probably I think maybe 4 or so years ago, we launched the Black Founders Development Program. How do we, through Accenture Ventures, one of our other parts of our business, find early stage and mid-stage funding to Black founded organizations, right? So the whole point is if you're gonna elevate talent and innovation in a diverse way, you have to be intentional about it and put your money behind those investments. And so we've done that a number of fronts, a number of companies across various industries that are relevant to where we think the future is going and where we believe can have a major impact. And so that was our starting place, and we're not done yet. We've got some things coming out around how do we expand that to other demographics, right? And so I'm excited for what we'll see probably sometime in the latter half of this year.
Excellent. Just so many, on top of that, so many great things Accenture is doing. So thank you, Jake, and the leadership at Accenture. Jorge, so on your research, how do entrepreneurs and innovators innovate, right? There's this key thing around innovating, how they do it. And where do they get these ideas that change the world, right? So these entrepreneurs are out there innovating. How do they change the world, Jorge?
We spent a lot of time thinking about that, studying it, as you might expect. These are very special people because they're willing to think things no one else is willing to think about. And also, they're not afraid to be called crazy. So when you consider that you have an Elon Musk, who I'll admit on social media gets mixed reviews sometimes, but the thing he did was he decided we need to go to Mars. And once he set a vision that big, he realized I need money to be able to go to Mars. And he said, to do that, we'll build this company called Starlink, and we'll put up 30,000 to 40,000 satellites around the world, and we'll create then this company that'll fund billions of dollars so we can go to Mars. But then he realized that the last great attempt to try to do that was a company called Iridium that is still listed as the second largest bankruptcy in business history, right? So what was the difference between then and now? And then he said, the biggest thing is the reusability of rockets. You saw SLS get launched here in the last few months. It took about 20 years to get that to the launch pad, and it took about $30 billion. And now we're going at the place where instead of, say, back when the space shuttle was running, it cost $50,000 to launch a payload of 1 kilogram on the space shuttle. We're headed towards a time where it's going to cost about $10 per kilogram. And the global average for carrying something around and delivering it is about $3.50 right now. So rocketry is becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. What happens then is you start discovering then even more ideas, David. So it's once you're able to pop into that phase to say, okay, I've got a new idea and I figured out how to fund it, how to make it grow, then suddenly even bigger opportunities start to show up and you start to capture those. So it becomes a bit of a virtual cycle. We have other industries which happen too in finance with robo-advisors. We also have it in mining with the fully autonomous mines. You now have mines that are mining gold where there's no human beneath the surface, and it's bringing out tons of gold, but at cost. In an industry where they celebrated a fraction of a penny of improvement in cost per year, you're seeing a 5%, 10% improvement, and going ahead. By the way, embedded in all these are also the latest technologies. AI is part of all of it, making it all happen as well. So I hope that helps to answer part of it. It's a bit of magic as well, but at the same time, he was able to show, when I talked to clients about this, I said, wow, now I think I understand how I could do it. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I think there's some key takeaways in that around thinking big, right? No matter where we're at in our careers and industry, whatever, what's the big problem that we're going after, right? And always put that out there. And then what are the innovations and technologies that help enable that, which you touched on. So Juan, from an entrepreneur perspective, right, what do you believe are some of the unique challenges that Hispanic business owners face when they're seeking venture capital, so an area that we're both familiar with?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, David. Let me just give some statistics first, just so you're aware. 20% of the population is Hispanic, 14% is Black, yet venture capital, as attributed by a report by the National Venture Capital Association, NVCA, and Deloitte, and then also supported by Diversity VC, both studies in 2021, that only 1% of that money is going to Blacks and 1.6% to Hispanics. So 2.6% versus a fair share that should be around 34% of the population. So clearly, Hispanics and Blacks are not getting a fair share. some of the reasons why, and I've lived this firsthand, and I was blessed where my family was very educated, so I got good education. I went to Harvard, I went to Wharton, so I'm not even speaking for the much more downtrodden Hispanic or blacks in this country. I'm the one who has the network, yet it has still been extremely tough for me, despite that Harvard and Wharton network. There's a lack of networks in venture capital, right? When I reach out to VC firms, I almost never see a Hispanic name, okay? Of 1,000 estimated VC firms in the US, only 3%, 30 are focused on Hispanics. 70 are focused on blacks, 7%. But still, 3 and 7% respectively for a 20 and 14% of the population is quite low. That's data from Beta Boom. There's also a lack of informal networks of Hispanic mentors and advisors. Because when you run a startup, there's what they call smart money, which is going to a VC that has the advisory side of it as well, and the strategic nature that they're going to give you with the money. But you also want just people on your board, advisors, and you want people to understand who you are and connect with them. But the problem is, as per the Caper Center report in 2021, only 2% of execs were black and only 3% were Hispanic in all technology companies. So there aren't many Hispanics out there to call in technology if you're doing a startup as a black or Hispanic. When I was at Siebel Systems, which was one of the fastest growing software companies in the world, I was employee 100, 1 year later, 12,000 employees. So imagine 8 million in revenue to 3 billion in 2 years. So it was the most successful software company in history. I would call people, and I was in business development, calling 20, 30 people a week, and they would fax me or call me and say, hey, your email's not working, your fax isn't working. How do you spell your name? Is it W-O-N or H-U-A-N? They couldn't believe that the person on the other side of the phone was so intelligent and was Hispanic. They would have never imagined Juan was not W-O-N or H-U-A-N. They thought I was Asian, right? Because I'm in a tech company with so, and that has not changed very much. Let's see, in technology, there's only 8% of tech workers. So execs, there's less, but in tech, only 8% of tech workers are Hispanic, or 8% are also black. And Fortune 500 board seats, only 4% are Hispanic and 8% are black. So we're just really, underrepresented, and without that network, it's a huge barrier to climb.
Yeah, no.
So I'm gonna pause just for a second, because somebody just walked in who I want to recognize. So.
A little late.
That's okay, sir,
I'm
you're
so
never
sorry.
late. The Honorable Ileana Ross-Layton in the back of the room. She is, for those of you who don't know, the fourth Latina elected to Congress. And she's one of the founders of CHLI, and so we always affectionately refer to her as our Chile madrina, so.
Gracias. Uber, and I think I'm Zuckerberg.
We can help you with that. You might have built that out.
Honored to have you here, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
No, so I, just piggybacking off what Juan said, to just, and this is like a tweetable moment, right? So it's less than 2% of all the funding that's out there goes to Hispanic and African American startups that are out there, and we make up 30+% of the population, right? So what I say is, yes, there's a social, that there's a social issue there that we have to fix. But I say on top of that, there's an opportunity to really make some money, because these are phenomenal entrepreneurs. What Juan's doing and other leaders are doing out there. So, the venture capitalists who are ignoring these startups, they do it at their own peril. Because there's a lot of money and a lot of what they call alpha to be made there. Jake, so to you, Jake, how can non-minority businesses and allies support the voices of minority-owned businesses in their communities? And how do we work together to reduce those barriers?
So I'll piggyback just on the last comment and your comment as well, David. It starts with providing that early stage support, right? It starts with engaging directly with those founders, those sort of entrepreneurs out there, and providing the seed capital. And you have to have, again, I'll repeat the word, the intentionality behind it as an organization to say you're willing to partner in the right way, because it is not just a social matter, it's an economic development matter. It matters for our common prosperity. So that's one of the early ways you've got to do it. Secondarily, partnering in your local communities. Right? Think about it with whether it's universities, down at the high school level, down at the community college level, apprenticeship programs, finding different ways to get talent from all corners of where it can be found. Well, that's one of the things that we've done at Accenture, sort of our annual now sort of 2 years old apprenticeship program. So we're taking folks with no degrees, right, high school, or any other skill set and bringing them in as full-time employees. It's another way to say, hey, you don't have to have a 4-year bachelor's degree to work at a professional services firm, because talent and skills can come from many places. So.
No, the technology apprenticeship program that Accenture had is, I would say, world leading in terms of a lot of people are looking at it and trying to follow it. The additional thing too is Accenture also has, and I've seen it, is this technology vision. Every year they put this amazing report out that I would encourage you to take a look at, download, read, and build off the great insights.
Next one comes out next week, as a matter of
Oh,
fact.
next week, okay, excellent, so check it out. Thank you, Jake. So Jorge, so we're in DC, on the hill here, talking about policies, right? How do we influence policies? So what are the policies that are going to ensure that our entrepreneurs, right, which are really some of the best in the world, they can continue to compete at the speed of innovation, the speed of learning?
Well, it turns out I spent a lot of time over the past year, into a few years, talking to U.S. military, talking to aerospace and defense companies, also talking to agencies like NASA, FAA, and they're all saying the same thing. They're saying that the biggest issue on the table is the amount of regulation we have today in industry. It slows down innovation, it kills it. And what I was told by, I won't tell you which agency it was, or the fact that it was a very highly placed official, but what he said was that today we have an approach that's very prescriptive, so that if you're manufacturing something like a jet, and you're at a workstation, and you're supposed to wear a yellow garb, and if you're not wearing that yellow garb, you're out of compliance, and they'll write you up. So imagine you're working in a place like that where you have to worry about that. I mean, you don't have to make any decision just to come here to the Rayburn building. And so the move now is to become more descriptive, more like what actually Elon Musk does, in that they're not afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of how you learn. So part of that, competing at the speed of innovation, also means you're really competing on the speed of learning. How fast can you learn? And the way you learn, and it's painful, but you learn by failing. You learn by blowing up the rocket and then saying, okay, what happened? What can we do to make it better to ensure that we get there to the next level? So those are the things that I think I find are weighing on my mind heavily, and we're actually in conversations with the different agencies about this. But it goes throughout the entire economy, and even things that are meant to help Hispanics many times are barriers, because I can remember a time when there really were no role models at all for investment, and no one really knew. It was just one, that making money is something that the gringos did because they knew how to invest the money. But now that I'm older, I said, gosh, I'm certainly going to make sure that my son and my grandchildren are well aware of what they can do. And you have people like you see him sitting here with us together, and David with me doing Angeles Investors, really remarkable how that's growing and how it's grown. In fact, David invited me to a meeting of Alamo Angels. Those of you who have been to San Antonio, there's a group there called Alamo Angels, and they do the same thing. They're putting seed capital into mainly Hispanic-led, Hispanic-formed companies. That's just never existed before, right? So I'm looking at, we have a wealth of riches right now. The main thing is to get the regulation out of the way to ensure that someone doesn't put a law in place trying to regulate the investment capabilities. Someone's going to make a mistake, of course, but the real point here is to be able to invest, to be able to innovate at a speed that is commensurate with our global competition. You have to be able to withstand mistakes. You have to you keep the people accountable who make the kind of mistakes that are criminal. But at the same time, you don't kill the whole system just because a few things went wrong. You learn from that, figure out how can we make it right, how can we make it better. And that's, I think, what will really unleash the creativity we have in the country today.
Yeah, Jorge, those are some excellent points. The one thing I would add too, just as those who are listening, and we have some interns here, is there's this idea that when you want to move in a direction, be very agile, test, learn, adapt, but don't stand still.
Right.
Always be, moving in a direction, learning, and keep moving forward. And this is kind of a great segue to Juan here, in terms of partnerships with great companies. When you're a startup, it's partnerships and customers are vital to help you grow and scale. And Juan, so why do you believe the partnerships with companies like Accenture and all the others that you mentioned here are beneficial for emerging startups or SMEs?
Yeah, so one way that we've been able to grow is partners with the large companies. Accenture is one of our partners. It gives us credibility. When you're a small startup and you tell a company that you're servicing Accenture and you have their logo on your website, I mean, instantly you can compete against a Workday and Oracle, because now they say, well, these guys are servicing a large 700,000 employee company. Capital, they have a Project Spotlight group that gives money, and so they focus a lot on diversity-founded companies, diversity-owned companies. The network effect through Accenture, I've gotten access to a ton of people at Accenture who then put me in touch with a ton of people in technology, even in VC. They're also looking to resell our product to all their clients through their T&O organization and L&C organization, talent and organization, leadership and culture. And then just advice, hearing the world experts at Accenture give us feedback on our platform and how we can improve it. It's always accepted and appreciated.
Thanks, Juan. So this one is to Jake. When we talk about minority-owned businesses, how can we ensure that minority-owned businesses have an equal opportunity to participate in public and private sector procurement opportunities, which drive a big chunk of business in our country?
No, that's a great one. So, I mentioned earlier, I spent probably almost 20 years in our public sector business in Accenture Federal. It is around, to quote your book, I guess, networking. It's around access, but it's also around making sure that we have the frameworks in place to have the right partnerships. And so, in many cases, large businesses like Accenture and many others in our competitive field need to and do partner with smaller businesses, minority-owned businesses, across many industry verticals. And so I think you have to create those opportunities and investment avenues for new businesses to thrive, right? And you need to find a way to provide the opportunity for new businesses like that to thrive. But the key thing is around sort of working together as a stakeholder group. So to recognize that, it may sound cliched, rising tides float all boats. You have to have sort of that foundational element in place for large businesses to recognize that, innovation and ideas can come from many corners, and be willing to sort of invest in those. We are the most acquisitive company on the planet. We would probably buy more companies out there to fill gaps where we think the world is going. We were the first out of the gate, probably over 10 years ago, that said every business is a digital business. And now people at the time thought, that doesn't make any sense. We said, no, where the world is going, every business has to be a digital business to thrive. Today, every business has to have technology at the core. And that's sort of the things that we lead in. And so as you all here, I see a lot of great, younger than me, right, folks out there who are thinking about where they're gonna go, forward in their lives. Like, you have to be relevant. So you have to maintain a level of curiosity and understand, what moves and motivates you and where you think you can contribute. And, and find those opportunities to learn, formal and informal, and don't forget your communities.
Yeah, no, excellent points there. And I think too, as Jake was mentioning that, I was thinking too how, the world is changing. There's new technologies, new things happening all the time. And as leaders and future leaders, that we need to be agile, learn, adapt, grow, which is vital. So thank you, Jake, for those remarks. Jorge, so the question around just big moments, big events, and things that we can do. So how can we create that Sputnik moment, right? The point where most of the talented engineers and scientists rush, to enroll in these most challenging and daring projects. And by the way, you might want to double click on what the Sputnik moment is for our audience, right? So we can.
So in I think it was 1957, the Soviet Union launched a steel sphere into space, and they call it Sputnik. It was the first satellite in space. And suddenly, in a world where you'd had World War II, the Americans are feeling pretty comfortable that nuclear weapons were distributed. We realized that, wow, the Americans were way behind the Soviets now. They didn't have anything like that at all. And so the call went out to get everyone, first of all the scientists and engineers that existed, get them working on getting into space, and then to get all the other kids that weren't yet in a program like that, to get them to study. We didn't even use the word STEM, just go into engineering, go into mathematics, go into science. And that moment was just a rush from the whole country. I was born in '55 myself, and I was part of that. I went to Notre Dame Electrical Engineering and Rice University in the Master's in Electrical Engineering as well. Finally had to learn business later on, but all was well then. But it just gives you a sense of what's driving that. And to me, David, I'm wondering if we haven't already hit a Sputnik moment. So they do polling of all students in the U.S. asking them, okay, which company would you want to work for, right? And amongst engineers, all the engineers across the whole U.S., number 1 is SpaceX.
Wow.
Number 2 is Tesla.
Wow.
Number 3 is NASA, right?
Wow.
And 4 is Lockheed Martin. But the point is that these didn't even exist on lists. You know, when I went to Notre Dame, the number 1 company in the world was IBM, and it was like considered the best company to work for. And I went to work for them, right? I mean, I still carry some of the uniform of the blue suit and the red tie, which became a standard for Congress as well, I guess. But the main point is that what's driving it right now is that is the mission and the vision of the company, right? So, as crazy as it sounds, when Elon Musk says, "I want to go to Mars," there are kids getting up in the morning saying, "That's cool. I want to do that. I want to get there." Now, understand too that if you're working for a guy like Elon Musk, the pay is not as good as everywhere else. You're working very long hours. You're working very, very hard. Kind of a brutal culture because you're trying to move as fast as you can. But people who are there are saying, "I would never work anywhere else because we're doing something that's important." And it's that sense of, I'm doing something that really matters. Or if you work for Tesla, I'm trying to build cars that will make sure that we don't have to worry about climate change. Or, you know, you go for, you know, these aerospace companies, the defense companies that are building things for defense as well. And I think that taken together, we may have already hit a Sputnik moment just because we're watching how the students are voting. And if they can't get to work for SpaceX, they say, well, okay, I'll go work for a company that's in aerospace and defense. And if I can't work there, I'll work for a company that works for them, but I want in on the mission. So that's it.
So Jorge, just for the tweetable moment for the audience, so
Yes.
it was SpaceX
Yes.
was number 1,
Right.
Tesla was number 2,
Right.
what was number 3?
NASA.
NASA,
Right.
that's an interesting one,
Yeah.
NASA. So that's the tweetable moment, get out there and the chili, right?
Yes.
Hopefully, you know, like, loves, all that good stuff.
But yeah, let me just talk
Sure,
about that
please
for a
do.
second, because I think it's interesting, this sort of, the next Sputnik moments. If you think back to, you all have iPhones or some kind of smartphone in your pocket, right? When Apple launched the iPhone, even before then, when they built out the iPod, the whole point of the iPod was not around sort of creating a device, it was, I want to carry my music everywhere. Right? And then the iPhone was not about making a phone, but making a way for you to connect to various things in the world and services. So the innovation point is not the actual thing, it's the thinking about what the thing is going to do. And so as you're sort of dreaming about what comes next, and now, like, so you had the iPhone, you move forward, right? And then, you know, it's all the rage right now, ChatGPT, generative AI, is that I think is the next great leap forward, because it's going to allow us to sort of enable artificial intelligence to solve things that we don't want to do ourselves, like very routine, repeatable processes, but allows you to maintain a level of creativity and think about and imagine what can be done next and have technology support you. You still control it, but have technology support you. That's the next, I think, big thing we're going to see happen in technology innovation.
And then being here in DC's, right, how do we enable the policies, right, and educate our leaders to make sure that we're able to do this in the most efficient way? So thanks for that, Jake. Juan, so when you think about unconscious biases in the venture capital industry, particularly, what's your thoughts as when it comes to funding Hispanic entrepreneurs in your journey?
Yeah, so I could talk for an hour on this one, as I'm sure a lot of you have had a lot of experience with Hispanic. So when I talk to my friends who are not Hispanic about how hard it is to raise money and why, a lot of them look at me dumbfounded, like, why would you have a problem? You know, you went to great schools, you're well educated, right, your company's amazing. And then I tell them, well, can you name one famous Hispanic in business? They look at me like, what do you mean? There must be many. I'm like, well, name one Hispanic who runs a company, one Hispanic who runs a big private equity firm, right? One Hispanic in the VC world. And so other than athletes and entertainers and maybe a couple of politicians, this country has 20% Hispanics and between 10 and 20 for the last 20 years. And not one person of a name recognition is known to a young person. So when little boys wake up saying, I want to go to Mars, or little boys or girls wake up, I want to be a famous, you know, technologist, they have no one to think of. And that is the beginning of unconscious bias, because when you look at VC firms and who they're investing in, they're getting hundreds of emails a day to filter, to even look at the decks of the pitch deck of the startup. And if they're seeing a name Juan Gonzalez or Juan Betancourt or, you know, Javier or Maria, whatever, and they have 100 of these without even thinking, and I don't blame them, I don't think it's racism, it's just efficiency. They can only get through 5. And there's an email from Miami or from Charlotte, North Carolina, from a Hispanic, they're probably just not gonna open it up. As I can tell you, I've written to over 500 VC firms, and maybe I get 10% who respond. And I'm thinking they get a lot of emails, they get a lot of people writing to them, they're not even gonna open it up. It's like when we get an email from a client potentially, we're small, we only have 1 sales guy. We get emails from Nigeria, Papua New Guinea, or Indonesia from some company that's interested in our product. I can assure you we don't respond because we have hundreds of emails to go through, and it's unlikely there's gonna be a 50,000 person client writing from Indonesia, and we might be making the wrong assumption, but the same thing in venture capital, when they're getting people writing to them who are of Hispanic background, they're probably not noticing. SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resources Management, came out with a study that showed that non-Latinos or non-Hispanics, so white, blacks, and Asians, believe, when questioned, that 1/3 of all Hispanics are undocumented. The reality, it's only 13%, but they think 33% are undocumented and of lower education. 50% of all white, black, and Asians believe Hispanics are only working as farm workers or laborers. This is all unconscious bias, so that when you do go to a tech event or a VC startup pitch event, and I do talk to people at these events, some of the most common comments back to me are, wow, you don't sound Hispanic, you don't look Hispanic, wow, you're so educated for being Hispanic. And I can tell they're not racist, because racism has a different face. This is just, they're surprised, they have this unconscious bias about what Hispanic looks and feels and sounds like. Dating apps, I mean, go figure this one, I can't believe this is still around. If you're a person and a woman or a man on a dating app anywhere in the country, and you want to date someone white, they don't have a category called white. They have a category called white non-Hispanic, because they don't want to be fooled by the Hispanic who is white. So go look, you won't believe it. People actually want whites who are not of Hispanic origin. So this is all part of our society, from dating to just entertainment to the news. And even the term, all of the 30 VC firms that focus on Hispanic type founders, many of them call it Latinx. I don't know where these companies are getting these VC funds and non-Hispanic focused VC funds get it, but 40% of Hispanics are bothered and find the term negative Latinx. 61% prefer Hispanic, 29% prefer Latino, and only 4% of all Hispanics or Latino actually like Latinx, because the bundle all Latins together is just not accepted right now by Hispanics and Latinos. Only 25% of Hispanic Latinos have even heard of the term Latinx, yet the money being funded for VC is for Latinx. They don't even know what the category is. So I could go on and on about the unconscious bias, but you know, I'm 52 and I don't want to be 85 when I leave here today.
Yeah, we could have a whole another tech talk on Hispanic, Latino, like Latinx, Latino. It's like, man, there's a lot going on there, but that's for another group, another day. Thanks, Juan. You know, the interesting perspectives there, and you know, with Angeles, right? We see about 100 startups a quarter, but they're Hispanic founders and co-founders, and I wish we had enough money to fund them all. We don't. But we have stories all the time where very similar to Juan's. They pitch hundreds of venture capital firms, and they get no. And one of our most successful ones, they're gonna do very, very, very well. She pitched 100 venture capital firms, was told no. We came, helped her, and then she raised. It's public. She raised $30 million, probably about a year and a half ago, and is just killing it, doing excellent. But it was a lot because we came in and helped and supported her. If you have questions, get them warmed up. We're gonna jump into them. I'm doing something I call rapid fire, just really, quick, maybe a sentence or so on each of these 3 areas. So we'll start with Jorge, and we'll go towards me. Jorge, so disruptive technology. What do you think is the most disruptive technology out there?
Yeah, I'd have to say generative AI.
Generative AI.
Top of the list, yeah.
Said I told you that earlier.
Gartner published that a few years ago.
Jake, or like one sentence around why and your perspective and its impact.
Yeah, and I want to leave enough space also for my colleagues here to talk about it as well. But what I'll talk about is that when you take generative AI, put it together with Earth intelligence and quantum computing and then low Earth orbit satellites, we're going to have this entire world that's going to be very disruptive for logistics. And we're going to be able to know where everything is every moment of the day. And so it'll be much more efficient, be able to have much fewer accidents, be a safer kind of world as well. And it's all because of the capabilities that come when you have that much intelligence, but it's also, you have to have like some quantum computing underneath it to be able to drive the sort of calculations required to get this level. So
Yeah, you kind of threw 2 in there, AI and a little bit of quantum. You did 2 for that.
That's all right.
That's all right. It's all good. Jake.
I would say the same thing, unfortunately, right? So it's generative AI, primarily because of the vast way it's going to transform how we operate lines. It's going to help us, really, I think, really stretch the ways in which innovation comes to life and at speed.
Question for the audience. How many people, show of hands, have tried ChatGPT? About 70% or so. For those of 30 who haven't, give it a shot. You will be amazed. Ask it questions. You will be amazed.
I even had to, who's done Mid-Journey and done a little imagery? You created, right?
Well, can you repeat that, Jake?
Mid-Journey, AI, right? You can get on and sort of give it a number of keywords. I want to see this and this, and it creates the images for you, right? It's art and creativity, but you can see that has vast ways of application.
So another one. So get out there and explore, agile, try it, give it a shot. Juan, most disruptive technology.
I mean, ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. So for those who haven't, you're hearing it from some of the world's leading technology leaders on technologies that you should be aware of. For those who haven't, it takes 5 minutes to create an account and try it out. Check it out.
All the answers to my questions today were from ChatGPT.
That's right.
Actually, somewhat joking, but a lot of the statistics, I actually just did statistics around Hispanics and venture capitals, and literally in 15 minutes, that would have taken me 3 hours of research.
Juan, I'm glad you asked. I don't know, 2%, I don't know. That's kind of amazing. Pretty soon you won't need me, you just have ChatGPT if you're talking and asking questions. All right. Jorge, favorite technology company?
I'd have to say SpaceX.
SpaceX. Jake?
Probably Apple.
Juan?
Human intelligence.
Human intelligence.
Aside from human intelligence. That's all I live today. But I would say Google.
Amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
amazing.
At the end of the day, I grew up with Encyclopedia Britannica, which anybody over 45 probably did. And it was the whole world in like 4 million pages you had to flip through, which would take hours to even find something. Now that any kid in the world, whether it's in Venezuela, Nigeria, or Papua New Guinea, can just look on Google and soon ChatGPT and just get the same information in seconds. I have a 2 and a 3.5-year-old. I tell her, my kids will not go to college. It will be a problem if my kids at 18 already don't know what I knew at 35. With the amount of information download possible, and my wife and I both went to Harvard, but we're pretty sure that we will have done a bad job if at 18 we're not entering her into some job or some experience that she already knows she wants to do.
Jorge, this is the last quick fire and then we go to questions. Favorite tech or business book that you'd recommend for the audience?
The End of the World by Peter Zeihan.
Another world by Peter
Talks
Science.
about what's happening globally, geopolitics, and he's talking about Peter, Zeihan is his last name, and he's talking about the demographic implosion of China, which is not casual, or it's very important, I think, and he's really bringing it up.
And then, Jake.
So I can't remember the author's name. The book is called Weekend Language. And if you think it's a way in which to understand how you best communicate at a level that's more conversational and getting away from buzzwords and technology spouts and this and that, and it's actually very helpful.
For business.
For business, right?
And relationships.
Anything.
Weekend only 5 years now.
I need to talk about dating sites.
So for me, one business book, one personal book, Business, The Power of Trust by Natalie Oldfield. Basically trust in the workplace, probably through language and communicating, gets you a lot more than intelligence or knowledge. It's really building trust. And then spirituality was a big factor in my ability to go off and start a company and really influence others and vibrate my highest vibration to attract both clients and investors. And so there's a book called Journey of Souls. There's 3 parts. Just do the first one by Dr. Robert Newton, has a purple cover. That book will change any person's life who reads it, I guarantee you.
It's a journey of what?
Journey of Souls.
Soul,
Get past page 40, it's a little out there in the first 40 pages. And once you do, you will literally write to me and say,
okay.
And then a couple, just one sentence answers on these. In terms of venture capital, Hispanic entrepreneurship, you look at the next 5 to 10 years, government and private sector, what's the main thing that they could be doing to play in this evolution? Jorge, one sentence.
I think that if they keep thinking about how they can unleash the innovation that's already available by getting out of the way of the innovators, that's going to be the most important thing.
Jake.
I mean, I'd go back to always sort of public-private investment capital, right? And in a way that is tied towards driving, entrepreneurial growth and rapid growth.
Thanks, Jake. Juan?
Yeah, I think tax incentives, there are no Hispanics or not many blacks in technology. They should give tax incentives to companies to hire Hispanics and blacks. They don't pay, corporate income tax for those employees. Also for funding, venture arm funding of big corporates have venture arms to fund Hispanic or black companies, give them tax breaks on that as well.
Okay. And then it might have been around the most disruptive tech, but it might be a little bit, this is a question that's a little bit different for everyone, sentence or two. The tech challenges or opportunities that when you see, it could be industry, military, energy, autonomy, like what's the biggest tech challenge and opportunity you see? Jorge?
I think trying to actually manage generative AI. I think right now, as I talk to colleagues in different companies, the best way to say it is when you ask them, they'll say, "We have no idea what's going on inside here." That's somewhat terrifying, and I think that for that to change, that would also put us on a positive trajectory that could get us to do some things. But right now, it's a wild west sort of situation.
Thank you. Jake?
Yeah, I'd say, so if you think about where we're going, the next sort of revolution of industry, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, generative AI, whatever it is, we have to sort of upskill and reskill our people. Right? That's one of them. And I think the second piece, we sort of touched on it briefly, is sort of, we've got to guard against bias. So we have to sort of build in the right sort of ethical thinking, guard against bias, protect against disinformation. So you have to worry about, you can use ChatGPT, now you'd be concerned, is the source that it's pulling from to give you the answer, right, factual. Right? So you got to sort of solve for both the questions being asked that don't sort of drive bias into the output, and also solve for the answer pool that you're training the artificial intelligence to pull from to give you the right information.
Jake, Juan?
Yeah, so again, technology for the last 100 years has been around physical objects being technology. Technology of the future will be information technology. And so picture the day, and it's probably only 30 or 40 years away, where people are going to be putting chips into their brain that literally will be like your Google or GPT interface, and you'll just be able to download information. So the barrier of education and knowledge, which is like this between like sub-Saharan Africa and like Western economies, is gonna come flat. And so imagine a world where everyone will have access to the same information, where everyone can plug into all knowledge and all wisdom instantly. So the key there, though, is how do you make it fair where people in sub-Saharan Africa or in poor Latin American or Asian countries or African countries have access to the same information, because that divide today of the who's, the haves and haves not is going to just accelerate exponentially if certain demographics of people do not get access to those technologies. So I think government will play a hand in that.
Wow, some great insights and perspectives, some global technology leaders. Let's give them a round of applause before we jump in there. Okay, we got some great CHLI interns. We got those out there in the metaverse and out there on the web. We have a question in the back. Pastor Romo, you got the microphone?
Test.
Yeah,
Test,
yeah.
test, test.
Yep.
Yep. Hello, thank you for being here. My name is Carlos Padilla. I'm one of the CHLI Global leaders this semester. And my question, based on the last comments you were making, the three of you, regarding, ChatGPT and this form of generate so much information and download so much information so quickly. I have a concern, and I would like to see what is your perspective and how we counter that concern, which is, if we have, knowledge is built on experience, right? So, as a college student, I can see a lot of college kids, cheating on their assignments, on their essays, trying to pretend to know what they don't really know, just by Googling it, in this case, or now actually using ChatGPT to generate those answers. So this is a true concern that we have. Like, for example, what's going to happen to me when in the future, the doctor that is attending my case just cheating through college, through med school? What's going to happen when we have, for example, in I don't know, in NASA or in SpaceX, a crisis, right? A technology, engineering crisis. For example, when we try to get the man in space back to Earth, right? And those critical moments are built on experience. People that have to be training the brains over time for years. I mean, we know that expertise is taking 20,000 hours per person to get to a certain point of, calling yourself a master. So how can you overcome that obstacle? And how can you make sure that people are not just gonna get used to getting information for granted? Like we see in social media, people create an argument thinking that they have the internet to back whatever they're saying. So what is the answer to that? How can you overcome that? How can you counter that concern?
Who do I go first? So I try to say a little bit in my closing point around the ethics, right, and then really sort of solving it at that point. But the reality as well is you're going to get found out. So let's say you pass all the tests using ChatGPT, you get an A, you get your degree. The moment you show up, you're going to get found out, because the work is where it really happens. So I think that's the challenge for anybody, right? It's like, are you willing to put the work in to learn, to gain the expertise? Because that's how it gets proven, sort of the execution of it. It's really less about did you show up with an A, you went to Harvard or wherever you went, right? It's, can you actually demonstrate that you actually understand what you're putting forward? I get the point. We've got to sort of not just teach the technology, but teach the ethics as well around it all, but also recognize that when I say to you, can you build that chair, and you've passed the test that you can, and you really didn't, you're done. You get one chance to make that first impression, right?
Jorge, I think you were going to add something?
Yeah, 100 years ago, there were people that would fly around the country that were called barnstormers. They'd be on a biplane, they'd land on a farm, and for like 2 pennies, they would take you up into the air with them, right? You had no idea if a gasket was gonna blow or anything. And so the sense of risk 100 years ago is so much different than now, right? Now we expect that everything's gonna work, right? We're now entering a time where you're gonna have, say, a Starship rocket with 120 people that's gonna blow up in the sky, and they're all gonna die. And yet, we're not gonna do 5 years of analysis. We're gonna say, keep going. We have to keep going. It's that sense of risk that your generation is facing right now. And those that are going to triumph are the ones that are willing to accept the risk and go with it. The other ones are gonna kind of pull into their shell and say, oh, please, don't hurt me. But what you're gonna learn very quickly, and I think it happens just about every generation, is that you learn that pulling into your shell is not an answer. And so even if you try to do it, you give up and you say, okay, I'm gonna go and take it on. So yes, all the things you point out are genuine concerns, genuine risks. Those are the things that we're gonna learn from. And there will be damage that's caused from it. So I would focus on, okay, what are the opportunities that represents to say, create something that might even make the world safer or better on top of that. Because if you work on prevention, the best you can do is say, oh, you're working on last decade's problems. You're not working on the problems of the future, your future.
Yeah, like the opportunity, there's so much opportunity, position yourself to go after, right? Juan, did anything you want to?
Yeah, two parts to that. One, when you show up, to his point, you know, success in the real world is content knowledge, which you were talking about, experiential, like how good have you become doing it physically, like or in the job, and then leadership, right? You can't fake the last two. So it will come out. The people who use content and knowledge better through the last 2 points will succeed. My wife's a doctor, and she, to pass her exams or medical boards, she would memorize, like, she's a child psychiatrist, so she had to do 2 boards. One for what medicines you give to adults so you don't kill them, and what medicines you give to little kids so you don't kill them. So she had 2 books, like 1,000 pages. And my wife is not a psychologist. She never took psychology, right? She's a psychiatrist. She is a psychiatrist, is a chemist. All they're doing is memorizing every combination of drug you can imagine. And it was just beyond me. I'm like, hey, honey, well, why can't you guys just use like Google when you're looking at you're in the doctor's office? Just pull up. She goes, yeah, but once you're in the real world, we use that. I go, why don't you use it for your medical exam? She goes, well, they haven't changed it yet, but that's going to happen one day. I really believe that knowledge will become a commodity, right? Like that, of the 3 things that make you succeed in the world, knowledge will become a commodity, which is a good thing to equal the playing field around the world. Because right now it's the rich get access and the rest don't. But you know, a doctor will be able to use you know, Google in their exams, and when they're seeing a patient or in the emergency room. Why wouldn't you say, hey, let me pull up real quick ChatGPT to solve this issue if the information is correct and quick, and it could get to a better resolution? Why wouldn't you do that? Well, no, you know, you passed your exam, sir, but you didn't, so you can't cheat. Like I don't know. I learned 5 languages like English, right? Because I thought I was going to be this world global citizen, and I could connect with humanity right around the world, right? I spent literally 40 years of my life, 25 living outside the U.S., struggling to learn, work in foreign languages. And then I read, I think 2 months ago, there's a little earpiece you can put in your ear and go to any country in the world, and they speak, and it translates for you. My first reaction was like, that is sacrilegious, right, for a polyglot like me. But at the end of the day, my ego pushing back, my old age pushing back, fell through to, well, one, that's just technology. If now everybody in the world can experience the world, right, only suckers like you spent your life learning languages, but what about the other 90% who want to see the world and go visit China? Let them visit China, even if they've never learned Chinese. So I think we just have to get used to knowledge becoming commodity.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I remember taking calculus. This was back in I took calculus in high school, just pen and paper for the most part. And then you get into college and you had computers that they'd calculate all these calculus things. And it was kind of the same thing, but because people say, well, wait a second, isn't that cheating? Well, no, you learn how to use the tool to help you enable, right? And there's gonna be more tools, more technology, innovation, et cetera. Question here.
Hi,
Wait for the microphone so those on YouTube, by the way, those on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, like, love, comment, we love them all.
Hi, I'm Jerry Hayes, NASA engineer, and I am dedicated my life to trying to make sure that this path to getting into sciences and engineering is less barriers to entry. You know, going up to college, beat out courses, systemic issues, institutionally, problem there. But, you know, I did a TED talk about the difference between tech and technology, and I think we're undermining how challenging it really is to build a system from concept all the way to launch. I've done this my entire life. So cool. Not everybody wants to do the hard work, haves or have-nots. And if I'm getting this right, I would describe haves as technology, minority who get it, who want to get the PhD, do great work in sciences. But then the have-nots, I think we need to focus and create a framework. Like say, hey, K through 12, what's the curriculum with information that we need to make sure we're the foundation we're building for this track of have-nots? Because growing up, it was calculus, math courses, each step for the next foundation. So what curriculum will we build for the have-nots early in childhood to give the path to IT and information if everybody doesn't want to be a scientist and engineer? Because I think it sounds like we need to create this Sputnik opportunity for tech. We've already had the Sputnik opportunity for technologists. So what would it be for tech?
So, it's a great question and sort of hypothesis there, and I like it. There's a couple of things I think about. So my undergraduate, poli-sci English major, got my master's in public management, worked in City Hall in Pittsburgh, then I joined, a consulting company. And the consulting company sort of taught me a lot of things, right? I've been at Accenture now, 25 plus years. At its core, it's about being intellectually curious, right? And we do this every year. So we hire, 60,000 people a year. We put 100 or so thousand people through our onboarding in the metaverse. When the pandemic hit, we couldn't be together, so we said we're not going to stop. So we shipped everybody the Oculus. We said this is how you're going to orientation and teach you, right, how to sort of be successful. We have a curriculum. We call it Technology Quotient. So I've got to go through 12, on the new things, right? Edge computing, generative AI, cloud computing. All of us are taking our Technology Quotient, from a senior managing director to a brand new analyst, is sort of learning the skills of what's happening today and to staying sort of what's coming next. So we mentioned we'll launch our technology trends next week. We launched our life trends sort of a couple months ago. Things that we're seeing in culture that are impacting technology. So that the core, it's around being intellectually curious. So my perspective is, as you think about the future generations, the young baby in the stroller here, where they want to go to school, we've got to teach them to maintain that level of curiosity and not try. I worry about, we try to get a little rigid and say, hey, everybody has to have a computer science basis. Everybody has to have this basis. We want to maintain some level of sort of freedom in a sense of being, looking around what's coming next. There are going to be things I think we all have to have some level of conversancy in. You're going to have to understand technology or tech in some respect to be successful in the future. But being, having the ability to be sort of fluid in your own mindset around, and be able to adapt to things changing, because it's going to change rapidly, right? I mean, what you're learning today will not be here 6 months from now, a year from now. We'll be on to the next thing. And that's where I think if you don't have the ability to be resilient and adaptive, you're going to fall behind and struggle. So let's make sure that the haves and the have-nots have that sort of adaptability and versatility to learn.
Any other comments from the panel?
Well, I think a great point. Educators are dealing with this as well, because they're losing students. That students are saying, "I should just go get a trade because I can make money, and I'm learning something all the time because things change the trade." And I think the main point here is that I think Jake is spot on here that I'm a Gartner analyst. This profession didn't exist when I went to college. I mean, so, and when I first went to Gartner, my wife, my whole family wondered, what is this? What is it that you do? And I said, well, talk to people and advise them about what they need to do about the better use of technology. What is it that you do? So they didn't understand, but the point would be is that we talked about the speed of learning, right? Is that curiosity then drives the point where you can then start to learn. And what you have to accept is that there are going to be mistakes on that as well. You may learn the wrong thing and invest yourself in the wrong thing, but as long as you keep trying, and I think David said it real, if you just keep yourself from standing still, keep moving, you're going to eventually find something that's going to put you on a path that's going to take you forward. It's just, I think that's probably the best advice today. If this had been 1960, we said, oh, you got to go to Harvard, you got to go to, or MIT would have been for engineering and science. So today, yes, those are great institutions, but not everybody goes to them. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, right? Larry Ellison didn't go to college. Zuckerberg, driving. I have a whole list of
Dell.
very successful people.
19 of the top 20 richest people in the world.
Yeah.
There's a tweetable moment. Juan, say that again?
think 19 of the top 20 richest people in the US did not complete college. Like, college is a guarantee for a good life, not exceptional wealth. One point to his comment, so I totally agree with you. Education has not been retooled for the way society will be, right? We grew up taking home economics in high school, right? Because you had to learn about other things, other
Woodcraft.
Woodcraft, right? But the concept
You guys
of,
are older than me, I just want to be clear.
but the idea that take a course that shows you technology is gonna run through your life, like, what is the new home economics that you should take? Like, it's not called home economics, but like, every kid should graduate.
Good, man.
What?
The pies were good.
But like, I took typing in high school, right? Like, there should be like, every kid should be audited by the time they're 7th or 8th grade on, are they falling behind tech-wise? Do they know how to research online information and technology? I think, education is consistently innovated by looking back and making a step forward. But the way it's really gonna innovate and catch up is looking forward and saying, where are we headed? Let's create a curriculum for where we're headed, not based on where we're coming from. As where we're coming from, education is way old school, and that's not gonna cut it.
Yeah, foundational technology, ethics at the core, civics at the core, right, and sort of, collaboration at the core.
Yep. Great question.
We have one over here.
Okay, let's go here. Here, and then we'll go here next. Sure, how you, hello?
Yeah.
Looks like my voice projects.
We can hear you.
So-
Keep going.
You can
Use
talk
it.
in my
Oh,
voice.
my voice, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm Christopher Claiborne, I work with Gardner as well, so my wife and family don't know what I do either, right? And I also did take typing in high school too, so, aging myself. But one question I did have, and we talked about technologies, right? We talked about innovations. What are, if we're looking at a VC standpoint, what are investable innovations, right? So you can have the best idea in the world, but if it's not investable, if you can't invest in it, it's kind of just a shell, right? So what are some of the innovations, ideas from a tech standpoint? And I know VCs is kind of tightening up with tech, right? Investing, but what are some of the top things that are being invested right now from that standpoint?
I can only speak to SaaS, so software as a service. HR technology is kind of right now the cutting edge frontier, right? In the 80s, you had database. In the 90s, you had ERP, enterprise user planning, where you automate the backside of a company, right? All the accounting, payroll, supply chain. And then we hit CRM in the 2000 to 2015, and every company in the world bought Salesforce, and Siebel grew, and HubSpot, and all these CRM tools. And now there's like marketing tools as well, but HR really is, the cutting edge of SaaS today. But, SaaS technology is only one of, let's say, 10 buckets of technology. Robotics and all these others are, just as investable as SaaS.
Yeah, it depends on the industry and depends on the outcome you're trying to drive toward, right? So he's exactly right, SaaS-based platforms, capital P in the sense of the things that you're thinking about, whether it's Microsoft, cloud-based services, things that are going to be sort of directly relevant and motivate human behavior to do something, consume something, learn something, engage in something. I think the next wave. And there are, it's funny, I was telling my kids a story. We were on vacation somewhere and met the guy who was the CEO of, I think it was American Packaging. I was like, what? I hadn't thought about this company. So it's not so much like making the things that you eat, right? Like, a Kind bar or something. It's making the packaging of the things that you eat. And that's where he's making his money. Because like everything has packaging, right? And so then how do you then invest in that? So there's things you have to think about, like, the seams. Look at the seams of where things happen. And that's where you're gonna find the opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I look at hundreds of deals a quarter, but the big, AI is big. What's happening, artificial intelligence is big. You're seeing a lot of money get poured there. Gaming is big. All the tech around gaming and the media and the content is big. Health and wellness, a lot of stuff around health and wellness. You're seeing a lot of money getting poured into there. And then it goes, I think, to the earlier point, like, there's innovation out there everywhere, from manufacturing. It's amazing the type of innovation.
Talk about it a little bit, is the rise in angel investing. I think it's like exploded, hasn't it?
It has. So angel investors, those are what they call accredited investors, those who made $200,000 a year, couple $300,000, or have $1 million in assets. can invest in these early stage startups, and that's roughly 10% of America. And I was on Capitol Hill, I don't know, a month or so ago, trying to get that down, because wealth should not indicate how smart you are to invest in some of these companies. But the amount of those who are now able to invest in these companies has increased. And it's also fueling innovation and investment in these things as well. So yeah, great question. Over here.
Hi, my name is Maria Hirado. I'm coming from a recent PhD in computer science from Florida International University, working for DoD now.
There we go.
So I hate to bring the conversation kind of back around to the have and have-nots, but I think it's important to touch on it. A couple years back, I had the luck to talk to the Miami's Chief Innovation Officer. I think at the time he was one of the first of his kind. And he brought up the fact that some telecommunication companies, for cost reasons, I presume, were drawing red lines around specific Miami communities, preventing them from having access to the infrastructure to even access the internet, thereby preventing the ability to even think broadly to, well, you can't Google with any amount of reliability. Innovation stops there. So I know, Juan, you mentioned that there's a place that government may play a role in this, but I'm curious to know what place you think industry could help to solve these problems here in the US.
I totally agree with you. If companies are doing this, telecom companies are drawing red lines around poor neighborhoods to not service them because they might not get paid, then government needs to step in and help out somehow and do a private public sector solution. Is that the whole have-nots? That's where the gap in information access for the poor is really going to really hurt them. Matt, I don't have a solution, but that is a huge issue that I foresee.
I think one thing to look at is that it's already happened. We have a scenario we talked about at Gardner, the connected Earth, right? So within the next 5 years or so, there'll be 40,000 satellites in low Earth orbit around the Earth. There will be a place in the Earth where you can't connect to the internet. You just buy a little pizza box shaped device, and the price that's going to keep dropping, probably given away at some point. And you'll be able to, whether you're in Miami, whether you're in the Andes mountains, southern India, it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to connect wherever you're at. And that is, it reminds you of, remember that when personal computers came out, we're saying we got haves and have-nots. So everyone was saying,
Deal divide.
the $100 computer. And then Bill Gates said, what if the best computer is a cell phone? Everybody laughed at it. But then guess what? Everyone's looking at their iPhones. You can do all sorts of things with them, communicating, drawing on it, listening to it. So sometimes a public-private partnership freezes the technology level to where it actually is bad for that future, because you stop looking for it. You figure, okay, we're taking care of this program. But what's really important is to keep that innovation going as hard as you can. And so what I was going to say, and by the way, I have a number of friends who've purchased Starlink and are working with that, and there's even a version that goes in your minivan if you want to just go traveling around the country or whatever. You stay connected, you get broadband internet just about everywhere you go, except maybe under an overpass. But the main point is that those solutions are already in place. They're growing very, very fast right now. They're now getting close to 500,000 users of Starlink, for example, and that's going to go to 1 million and then beyond that.
I think fundamentally the issue is wrong, right, as you raised it up, that it shouldn't happen. Innovation, I think, finds a way to sort of fill in the gap, and that creates opportunity. You sort of saw that. You go, okay, well, if the telcos are doing that, then someone's going to fill the gap and try to service populations. And then, whether it's by raising awareness and or, sort of filling the gap, the competition drives behavior.
Okay. Here. Oh,
This one back here.
so
We're done.
we got one more. We'll go one more here and then. Yeah.
Okay, can I just ask? Okay, cool. Well, my name is Jacqueline Sanchez Martinez. I'm an intern from Texas, so I'm currently in my junior year in my undergrad. Yeah, so I wanted to thank you first of all, because it's just being in a space like this is definitely very inspiring. I know, Juan, you mentioned that the percentage of, just Latinos in tech is just very, it was like 2%, 3%?
Executives, 2.3%, and just
Okay.
general population, 8%.
So I guess, you are all well established in your positions, but it's kind of from your perspective, how can we increase the number of specifically Latina women to come into this field? Because me, I'm an international studies Spanish major, minor Mexican American studies. Yes, we see technology, it's moving, revolutionizing, but then I'm in these spaces and I'm like, maybe I don't want to be a lawyer, maybe I want to, go a different route, you know what I'm saying? So I guess just what advice would you give to help bring in Latina women or Latinas?
So I'll try to answer from our perspective, and I'll use the word again, amazing 3 times in this conversation, companies to be intentional. So we're very forward. We're the first professional services firm to publish our I&D goals, right? We just basically say, hey, we want to be a gender balanced company, 50-50 male female by 2025. We're almost there. Right? We said these are our current stats on Black, on Hispanic, on Asian Americans, and this is where we're trying to get to. We put it out there as a marker, right? And that basically was telling folks that we aspire to be there, and we are actually one of the most diverse companies on the planet, right? It's a fact, and that I think it sends a message that this is a place that in many respects people can be welcome and you can thrive. We're also, like I said earlier, we're a huge company that we do a lot of things. The diversity of things that we do enables you to find things that may sort of fit your interests. You may want to go be a lawyer. Again, I was a liberal studies guy, and here I am 25 years later learning and delivering in the technology and the creative space. So the opportunities exist there. And a couple of things that we're also doing, we're working with HBCUs sort of on one side of the aisle around how do we help companies, not just ourselves, attract Black and brown talent from HBCUs by driving a curriculum, learning some of our platforms to teach on campus the skills to succeed, to be successful in our industry. I mentioned earlier sort of our Black Founders Program we're going to launch in the fall as we expand that across the way, especially on the Hispanic side. So those are things I think, so for you then to say, hey, who is actually being forward leading in this space that I actually want to go work for? And then come forward, the door's open.
I'll add. Tactically, there's 2 things you might want to consider doing. I would get a list of the great places to work, right? And there's like 2 or 3 different versions of great places to work, and find tech companies on that list and write to head of HR and say, look, I'm a Latina woman, it sounds like you're a great place to work. Would love to work at your company. Do you have any programs to increase your number of Latino or Hispanic women? Second area, I do a search for on Google, just chief diversity officers, Fortune 500, they all have one. And pull out the 30 or 50 tech companies and write on LinkedIn to those 50 chief diversity officers, hey, I'm a Latina Hispanic woman and I want to work at your company, do a program to bring people like me in. And my guess is of the 50, 10 or 12 might respond, oh yeah, we do have a program. Talk to this group here. I think they'd be willing to overlook that you don't have a tech background because they're probably not getting many applicants in technology from Hispanic, Latino women.
I'll add one more, David, you're so modest, you didn't include the fact you were once president of the Hispanic IT Executive Council. And the reason I mentioned them is it's really a group of, it's a nonprofit group. It's a gathering of CIOs and also IT executives. They also have programs especially for people that are coming in to develop you as a future executive. And with that comes also a nice sized network. I don't know if you want to, given with your book, you might want to relate to that as well, but we had a motto, push up, pull up, which was that we find somebody who needs help, we pull them up, and then we push them up as we teach them how to perform. Sort of, I found inspirational, and it's something you can also do right now.
Yeah, no, I would say, just in closing, that if you look at the panel, and including myself, we've all pivoted. We've all done different things and go different routes. So if you're intentional, you build the right networks, you get the right training, you join the right companies, you can pivot your way into technology and be a leader in one of the great, the great firms in the world, right? In the case of our leaders here. So that would be just my closing kind of thoughts on that. So, thank everyone. Let's give our panel another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Gabrielle and team, thank you for all the logistics and putting this together. And I'm gonna turn it back to Mary Ann to kind of give the closing.
All right, thank you. All right, so thanks again, another round of applause for David. Thank you so much, dear. A couple of things to wrap up. A reminder that our public policy Hill briefings are on a quarterly basis. Our next one is on June 22nd, and it's in regards to the state of higher education, and in particular to Hispanic, Latinos. I love this. And then the other is our gala coming up is May 10th. Here again in Washington at the Waldorf Astoria. And then kind of in closing, one of the things that I always mention is, you know, we talked about the haves and have-nots and different opportunities. So we're a very selective group here of have, because not everyone is able to be here in Washington, D.C., in this room to hear this conversation. And so I always ask everyone that if you're here and you've had this opportunity to be here, to please take the time to share what you've learned. So knowledge is power. It's gonna be a commodity. That sounds so scary to me, but okay. But the idea is that if we're here, the idea is that we help other people, right? That we help our families, our communities. You know, part of also getting a college degree is that you have more resources, that you're able to help other people, right? That you're able to expand that knowledge and to share it. And so please leave here connecting with other people, sharing what you have learned. In particular, if you are interested in creating something, you have an innovative idea, or there's somebody in the community who has some innovation, some idea that they want to start up or upscale, please be supportive. You've got other resources now that you can also share and let them know about. For the comments regarding kind of like reporting some bad companies, this is Congress. How many times and why is this place so busy today? Because there's a bunch of committee meetings going on, checking and balancing companies and industries that haven't been doing their part. So make sure that you also let your member of Congress know what is going on. For the people who are working in a member's office now, how many of those phone calls are you getting, right? And the letters that you get that somebody is not being a good corporate citizen, or somebody is not being a good citizen in the community. That's what this is all about. If you don't speak up, who is, right? If you hear or see something that isn't working, we need you to be engaged. We need you to speak up for all of those that are not here. So with that, thank you very much for being part of our annual Tech Talk. The crew is coming in to warm up the appetizers and get the bar ready for a little bit of networking. And again, take the time to meet our master networker over here, David Olivencia. Mucho gusto. God bless.